Yo, Pierre, you want to come out here?
Hello, it is your host, Carlos Ramirez, and welcome back to the final episode of the Odyssey podcast. In our previous episodes, you may have heard discussions about hubris and other ideals, but this final episode will be an in-depth look to the hero's journey chart and character development of Odysseus. Now, as you have probably heard, we discussed the ideals of hubris in Odysseus. However, we missed a couple of key points about his character. So we'll discuss these points before moving on to the hero's journey chart. For starters, Odysseus' character trait evolved over the series. Odysseus went from an egotistical, self-absorbed hero to somebody who learned his lesson and appreciates the things in life. Odysseus used to be somebody who was absorbent and also cocky. However, Odysseus' character was changed and challenged throughout the series. Things such as overcoming and growth was shown in the way Odysseus was a beggar in disguise. Going from a cocky character to somebody who was disrespected in his own home shows to us, the reader, his evolution in character. Another thing that was increasing his traits was the fact of Athena helping him. After the suitors were preparing to kill Odysseus in revenge for his killings, Athena came down to stop them. With this, Odysseus was able to understand and appreciate things such as his family and Penelope. One of the ways Odysseus grows during his hero's journey is which he, although enduring hardship, is committed to returning home. Even though he knows it's going to be a challenge, he stepped up to the challenge and continued to his final destination of his home of Ithaca. When arriving in Ithaca, we saw how Odysseus changed. Because he turned into a beggar disguised by Athena, he was able to get really close and kill all of the suitors inside of the house. Another thing, however, that we should discuss in Odysseus' overcoming tragedy, even though he lost most of his crew and eventually arrived alone, he still was able to mourn them. When others would probably be emotionally barraged and even tempted to quit because of all of his losses, he continued forward. His willingness to continue on in his journey is a testament to how strong, not only physically, but mentally Odysseus is. Other key points about his journey was when he was at his lowest points. Once arriving on Calypso's island, he is trapped and has to endure 8 years of isolation on the island. Calypso abusing him and keeping him as a sex slave. But Odysseus would not give up. After finally the god Hermes comes down to notify Calypso that enough is enough and that she should release Odysseus home, she gets angry and even tells him that the gods can do whatever they want, but the goddesses can't. This highlights another key point in the Odyssey, in which the hierarchy of women and man differences in power is shown. Even though they are all gods, she feels that the goddesses cannot react the same way as other gods. Odysseus, after finally being able to be free of Calypso, however, ran into Poseidon, in which he cast him to the island of King Alcinous. However, he is asked by the princess of this island to be the queen, to meet the queen instead of the king. This is because even though the king is the king, the queen also possesses power herself. After telling them his story, he ends up going to the island ruled by Circe, where he stays for 1 year, enjoying the many pleasures of the island. After this is when he has sacrificed 6 of his crew members in order to escape the beasts that haunt the ocean. As previously discussed, he later on goes to the island of the dead and is told a prophecy. Later on, his crew members defy that prophecy, which ultimately leads to the untimely death of all of his crew, and Odysseus survives, in which he finally concludes the retelling of his story. After all of this has happened, Odysseus still remains with one goal: to return back to Ithaca. Think about that for a second. A man who has lost his entire crew, was a slave to a goddess, and hasn't seen his son or wife or anyone else in over a decade. That goes to show you that Odysseus is a determined character. What's very interesting about Odysseus is his growth. Like we stated before, Odysseus was a very egotistical character, often going on about his strengths and sometimes even blindly ignoring suggestions made by others. To benefit him. However, what changes Odysseus is his attitude and outlook. When he is changed into a beggar, when he returns back to Ithaca, he understands now that his goal is to kill all of the suitors. And after breaking one prophecy, he already is dead set on making sure that this one is not broken. In which not breaking the prophecy by revealing himself, even though he was abused, ridiculed, and made fun of by the suitors, really goes to show us how Odysseus' character really evolved during this series. For example, the moments in which, when Telemachus to almost string the bow of his father, this is showing that this is an evolution of Telemachus. Up to this point, we believe that Telemachus, a very nervous and also pretty laid-back character. However, in this moment of the final climax, where he is fighting the suitors, he finally understands and realizes to himself that he is strong. We are shown this due to how intelligent he is during the battle, and also before, when the bow of Odysseus was almost strung. The only thing keeping Odysseus from stringing the bow was his father. This is a key moment in which everything is right. The final battle, the moment we've all been waiting for in the story. The final battle perfectly encapsulates what the story was leading up to. Odysseus returns, and with the help of his son Telemachus, kills all of the suitors. However, after this happens, he meets with his wife Penelope. Penelope, obviously skeptical of who he is and why he looks so similar to Odysseus, questions him. This shows Penelope and her character. She is very broken and is in disbelief of even thinking about Odysseus returning home. When Odysseus returns, however, and answers her question, she is relieved. She is overjoyed of the fact that Odysseus has returned home, which really goes to show us how much Odysseus meant to his son and his wife. Once this is completed, however, something else happens, which is the rebelling of the other suitors' families. And this is where I see the biggest moment of the series. The rebelling of the suitors was a signifying factor because it was going to show a never-ending battle. Because Odysseus killed all of the suitors in his land home of Ithaca, they had a right to be angry. They were angry because he basically had just killed the next generation. However, on Odysseus' side, he was talking to them because they were invading his home and taking all of his belongings. This shows us that if Odysseus went on to kill these people, there would be no end, because then all of the villagers would revolt against him. And with the suitors' families, they would revolt against their king. But when Athena stepped into the battle and halted all of them, this really went on to show how important the goddess Athena was really in the series. Athena has been in Odysseus' corner throughout the entire series. She has defended him, had his back, and also helped him in multiple situations when the other gods just took a blind eye to him. Athena was the helper of the story and shows off how important she is in the final moments of the book, in which she gets everyone to agree and comes to a peaceful agreement between the suitors and Odysseus. And that's the Odyssey. Thank you guys so much for watching the podcast. Leave a like, subscribe, and yeah. Thank you guys for all the supporters and the visitors who were interviewed on this. You helped out a ton, and yeah, thank you.